Hey everyone, if you've ever felt that dangerous pull between what you know is wrong and what your body craves, hit like and subscribe because tonight I'm confessing something that still keeps me up at night. It started at midnight when I woke up to the soft click of my bedroom door opening and saw her silhouette against the hallway light. My son's 22-year-old girlfriend, standing there in nothing but a thin white tank top, eyes locked on me with a hunger I never expected. I was 48. Freshly divorced after my wife left me for a younger guy, stuck in a dead-end warehouse job that left my back aching and my pride shattered. Every night I came home to an empty house, muscles sore from lifting boxes all day, wondering if any woman would ever look at a tired, strong but broken man like me again. The loneliness felt like a weight heavier than any crate I carried. Heavier than the silence that waited for me behind the front door. She was my son's girlfriend, me introduced to the family 6 months earlier at a casual barbecue as the sweet, polite college girl who laughed at my dumb jokes. She started coming around more often, calling me uncle with that soft voice while my son was busy with his phone or out with friends, always finding reasons to stay a little longer in our house. I remember the first time she said it. Uncle, like it was the most natural thing in the world, her fingers brushing my arm when she handed me a plate. My skin tingled under that touch, innocent as it was, and I hated how my pulse jumped. I told myself it was nothing, just politeness. Just a girl being kind to her boyfriend's old man. But nights like this one, when the house felt too quiet and my body still hummed from the day's labor that were decoed differently. She'd linger in the kitchen after dinner, asking about my shifts, her eyes flicking to the way my shoulders filled out my worn t-shirt. I'd catch myself straightening up without thinking, the ache in my back forgotten for a second under her gaze. God, she was so close that midnight. The hallway light outlining every soft line of her, the thin fabric of her tank top catching the glow, her breathing shallow like she'd run all the way here. I sat up slowly, the sheets whispering against my skin, and the air between us thickened, heavy with something neither of us should name. My heart slammed against my ribs. This was my son's girl. The one who sat across from me at family meals, smiling like nothing was wrong. Yet here she was, stepping inside, the door clicking shut with a finality that made my throat dry. Her bare feet made no sound on the floor, but every inch she moved closer pulled at me like gravity I couldn't fight. I swallowed hard. The loneliness I'd carried for months suddenly sharper, more alive. My hands, rough from work, clenched the edge of the bed. I wanted to tell her to leave. Needed to, but my body remembered how long it had been since anyone looked at me like I was still worth wanting, like I was strong enough to hold something precious again. Her eyes never left mine. That hunger in them mirrored the quiet craving it buried deep, the one that woke me in the dark hours when the house creaked empty. I could smell the faint trace of her shampoo, something sweet and warm that wrapped around me before she even spoke. What the hell was I doing, letting her stand there? My mind screamed that this was crossing a line we could never uncross. Yet the pull was there, magnetic, insistent, making the space between us feel electric, alive with all the almost I'd ignored for months. She took one more step, the hem of her tanked top shifting slightly with her breath, and I felt the heat of her nearness like a storm building just out of reach. My own breath caught, ragged as the weight of everything I'd lost pressed against the sudden, terrifying want rising in my chest. And then, it started so simply I almost convinced myself it meant nothing. She'd see me wincing when I lifted the heavy grocery bags after a double shift, Sanjak screaming from years of loading crates, and without a word she'd step in close, her small hands sliding under the handles beside mine. Our fingers would brush, warm skin against rough calluses, and for that second the ache in my spine would fade under the accidental heat of her touch. I'd mutter thanks, eyes on the bags, telling myself any decent host would let her help. Nothing more. In the kitchen afterward she'd perch on the counter while I brewed coffee, legs swinging lightly, talking about her lectures or some paper due soon. The steam rose between us, carrying the faint sweetness that always clung to her. I focused on the mug in my hands, on stirring too long on anything except how her voice wrapped around the quiet room like it belonged there. Just being a good host, I repeated in my head. Just listening. My son was usually upstairs or out, and the house felt less empty with her chatter filling the spaces. One evening after she left, the living room still held her perfumed sweet vanilla layered with something warmer, like clean skin fresh from a shower. I stood there longer than I should have, breathing in slow and deep, my chest tightening before my brain caught up. The scent lingered on the couch cushion where Shed sat, and I caught myself leaning closer, eyes half closed, letting it settle into my lungs. Later that night, alone in bed, her light musical laugh replayed uninvited, echoing through the dark until I pressed my palms to my eyes and exhaled sharply. This had to stop. My gaze had begun betraying me too. When she reached for a glass on the high shelf, stretching on her toes, the soft curve of her waist showed beneath her shirt for just a heartbeat. I looked away fast, but the image burned behind my lids anyway, pulling my attention back against every warning in my skull. I hated how my body noticed how the room suddenly felt smaller, warmer, the air thicker around us. God, what the hell is wrong with me? Shess, my son's girl, barely more than a kid in my eyes, years younger, full of that bright future it already spent. I'm supposed to be the steady one, the father who keeps things stable, not this tired, aching man whose pulse jumps at the memory of her scent on the fabric. Every time the thought crept in, I forced myself to picture my son's face, laughing at the barbecue 6 months ago, trusting me with the girl he brought home. This is sick. I'd mutter under my breath in the shower, water beating down hard like it could wash the shame away. Stop it. Just family now. Nothing else. Yet my body refused the lecture. Nights when the house creaked with emptiness, that vanilla warmth would drift back into my mind, and bident and heat would pool low and insistent, leaving me restless under the sheets. Fists tight at my sides, repeating the mantra until my voice grew hoarse inside my head. She called me uncle with such easy sweetness, eyes meeting mine across the table like I was safe, like I was solid ground. How could I let even the shadow of want twist that? I tried to keep the interactions short after that, nodding politely when she offered to help, steering conversations toward her studies or my work, anything neutral. But the pull didn't fade, it sharpened. Her laugh during one of those kitchen chats stayed with me through the next long shift, making the hours drag heavier. And when her hand brushed mine again, unloading bags, the spark traveled straight up my arm, leaving my skin humming long after Shed gone, the guilt gnawed deeper each time. I was the one who should know better, the one who'd raised my son to respect boundaries, to be better than fleeting urges. Yet here I was, a grown man, pulse racing at the memory of her waist curving as she reached high, at the way her breath sounded when she laughed close enough for me to feel its warmth. I'd stare at the ceiling in the dark, whispering the same desperate words Shess his. Yuri his father, this is wrong. My heart would hammer anyway, loud in the silence, betraying every ounce of control I thought I still owned. And then, one quiet evening, as she handed me a fresh mug of coffee, our fingers touched again. Longer this time, neither of us pulling away right away. Her eyes lifted to mine, soft and searching, and for one suspended second the kitchen felt charged, the air between us humming with everything we weren't saying. My throat tightened. I needed to step back to break the moment, but my feet stayed rooted, the heat of her nearness flooding through me like a slow wave I couldn't outrun. The obsession crept in like fog rolling off the sea at dawn, slow enough that I told myself I could still turn away. I started scheduling my garage workouts for those late afternoons when I knew Shed'd swing by the house after classes, the heavy clang of weights echoing louder than necessary. Sweat would trace down my arms and chest, catching the light as I pushed through another set, and I'd catch her pausing in the doorway, eyes lingering a fraction too long before Shed'd smile and ask if I needed water. Her text to my son began slipping my name in by accident. Little heart emoji I ducked beside casual questions about dinner plans that felt aimed at me instead. I'd stare at my phone in the dark, thumb hovering, replaying the way those tiny symbols made my stomach tighten. Against every scrap of reason, my hand would drift under the cool sheets, breath shallow as the memory of her glance burned hotter than the workout itself. What kind of man does that make me? I knew the answer, yet the pull only deepened. That midnight the house was silent except for the distant hum of the fridge. The door to my room eased open with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet. She stood there in the sliver of hallway light, wearing that thin tank top that clung just enough to outline the warmth beneath. I can't stop thinking about how strong you are, she whispered, voice trembling like a secret too heavy to carry alone. Her fingers reached out, tracing the hard lines of my chest through the thin fabric of my shirt, sending a current straight through me that made my muscles tense under her touch. I froze for one heartbeat, every warning screaming in my skull, but then my arms moved on their own, pulling her close. The thin material of her top slid against my rough palms as I held her there in the dark, her body fitting against mine with a gravity I couldn't fight. We crossed every line that night, the room filling with the faint scent of vanilla mixed with the salt of skin still warm from summer air. Her soft gasps blended with my low, ragged breathing, each one pulling me deeper into a heat I hadn't felt in years, making me feel raw and alive in a way that scared me even as it consumed me. Afterward we lay angled in the sheets, hearts still racing, the weight of what we'd done settling like war mash over everything. She curled closer, murmuring that being with me made her feel safe, desired in a way no one her age could offer. I told myself it was only physical, a quiet relief that eased the long empty nights and the ache of days spent grinding through work. Yet in those stolen whispers she confessed small insecurities about feeling unseen, and something in me stirred, a need to be the steady ground she leaned on. I felt useful again, strong in her eyes, wanted without the weight of years pressing down. We kept meeting like that, careful and hushed, finding moments when the house-empty door the night stretched long enough to hide us. Each time the door clicked shut behind her, the same war raged inside. Stop this now, before it burns everything down. Yet the moment her fingers found my skin again, the hunger won, quieting the guilt with the simple truth of her warmth pressed close. She said my strength grounded her when everything else felt unsteady. I let myself believe the comfort we stole made the loneliness bearable, but these secret hours gave us both something neither of us had admitted needing. But last night, as her breath slowed against my shoulder and her hand rested over my heart, she lifted her eyes in the dim light and whispered my name like a question neither of us dared answer fully. 2 weeks later the house betrayed us. My son came home early from a night out, keys jingling too loud in the hallway. I heard the front door, then footsteps climbing the stairs faster than they should, still curled against me, her skin carrying that faint vanilla warmth when the noise hit. Soft creak of the bed frame that cut through the dark like a warning bell. She froze, eyes wide with terror that mirrored my own. In one frantic heartbeat she slipped from the sheets and vanished into the closet, pulling the door almost shut behind her. I yanked the blanket up, heart slamming against my ribs, and forced my voice steady as the bedroom door swung open. "Hey, Dad, you okay?" Thought I heard something. I lied through my teeth, throat dry as sand. Just watching TV. Old action flick. Volume got away from me. He lingered in the doorway, silhouette outlined by the hall light, scanning the room with that half-suspicious, half-tired look only a son can give his father. The air felt thick enough to choke on, shallow breathing so close I could almost feel it against my back. One wrong move and everything would shatter. My relationship with him, the fragile trust we'd built since his mother left, the man he still believed I was. The terror slammed into me like a freight train. What were we doing? This wasn't harmless comfort anymore. It was poise and rest as need, and I had let it seep into the walls of our home. He finally nodded, muttered goodnight, and closed the door. The click echoed like a gunshot. Mia stayed hidden until his footsteps faded down the hall, then emerged trembling, her thin top twisted, eyes glistening with unshed tears. We didn't speak. We just held each other in the suffocating silence, the almost moment hanging between us heavier than any touch. Sunlight slicing across the counter like judgment. This can't keep happening, Mia. Last night, we almost lost everything. My voice cracked despite how hard I tried to sound decisive. I was the strong one, the steady ground, yet standing there I felt myself crumbling. She looked up at me with those pleading eyes, the same ones that had first pulled me under. Her fingers brushed my arm, barely there, sending that familiar current racing through my veins. "I know," she whispered, voice breaking like fragile glass, "but I need your strength more than ever. The world feels too heavy without it, without you grounding me when everything spins." I opened my mouth to argue, to end it right there with the moral weight I knew I carried, but her words wrapped around the ache inside me, the part that had felt useless and forgotten for so long. The warmth of her body so close, even without touching, quieted every scream in my head. Selfish. Weak. I knew it. Yet I couldn't walk away. We chose to keep going in secret. Convincing myself that as long as no one got hurt, this forbidden comfort was worth the risk. Deep down the truth gnawed. This was selfish. A hunger that fed on stolen moments and whispered names in the dark. But every time the house-empty door night stretched long enough to hide us, the pull won again, her breath against my neck, the way her hand rested lightly over my heart like it belonged there, the electricity that hummed between us without ever naming what it was. I let the moral war rage inside, one half begging to stop before it burned the last bridge with my son, the other surrendering to the simple truth of being wanted so badly it made me feel alive again. The gravity between us only grew stronger, a storm we kept feeding in hushed corners. So tell me honestly in the comments, do you think I did the right thing by giving in to her at midnight, or am I just a weak, selfish man who ruined everything? Would you have stopped, or would the temptation of being needed like that, being someone's strength when your own world felt cracked, have broken you too? If you want the full uncensored details of what happened that night and the risky nights that followed, drop a like and let me know, because there's so much more I haven't told you yet. Yet even now, in the quiet hours when the house sleeps, I still feel her whisper lingering like an unfinished train, and wonder how long before the storm finally breaks us